Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 70 based on novel. So let's start. After some discussion with Jiu Li, the matter about the Void Thunder Pool has been settled for the time being. Now it is still more than half a month before the Thunder Pool is opened, so Xiao Yang simply lives in the Medicine Refining Guild. Wei Yi is dead, and Jiu Li has sent someone to replace his residence. Now Xiao Yang, the chief herbalist of the Herbalist Guild, naturally lives in it. In the following days, people knew that Xiao Yang lived in the guild, and more people came to ask questions. However, in the small room of more than 10 square meters, in addition to some furniture, there was a bustling crowd, and outside the door, it was also filled with crowded people. In this regard, Xiao Yang had no choice but to be helpless. Jiu Li and Kai Phosphorus saw this. Although they wanted to help him, there were too many herbalists who came to ask for advice, and they didn't interfere much. When Wei Yi was in office, he was greedy and focused on making money. He looked disdainful when he saw a low-level herbalist. How could he ignore you if he didn't pay a certain price? After Wei Yi died in Xiao Yang's hands, the herbalists of the guild not only didn't complain about Xiao Yang, but also liked him. In addition to his current status, it's reasonable to see such a situation. This situation lasted for 3 days. On the third day, Xiao Yang finally couldn't bear the invisible bombing of those herbalists. He quickly found Jiu Li and told him that he would open a furnace to refine pills in the Herbalist Guild and let those low-level herbalists go to observe it. This method was unexpectedly applied to everyone. Although the imperial pill was not refined, the 9 pill also excited the pharmacists present. Several 9 pills that are usually very difficult to refine are now in Xiao Yang's hands, but all actions seem to flow. From refining medicinal materials to condensing young pills, and even finally becoming pills, there was no pause in Xiao Yang's medicine tripod. Even in the refining of medicinal materials, Xiao Yang's speed was more than twice that of ordinary pharmacists, which could not help but shock everyone for his means. He is worthy of being a second-class herbalist. He is beyond the terror of ordinary 9-grade herbalists. 9-grade pills are handy in his hand. The medicine tripod on the stage was full of strange fire, and the people under the stage were constantly exclaimed. The 9-product pill was rapidly formed in Xiao Yang's hands, and Xiao Yang's position in the hearts of the people was also rapidly raised. In just a few days, Xiao Yang's image in the eyes of the people was almost the same as those chief pharmacists in the past, even compared with the current presidents Jiu Li and Red Phosphorus, in particular. Ha, you guy, you've been living in the guild these days, but you've taken the limelight of our 2 old guys. Now in the guild, you hear those little rabbits talking about how exquisite your medicine refining is all day. It seems that we 2 old guys are embarrassed. Ha. In the hall, Jiu Li sat beside Xiao Yang, looked at Xiao Yang with a smile and said jokingly. When the latter heard this, he couldn't help laughing bitterly. He shook his head and sighed. Then he said, "If I can let you 2 old people taste the feeling of being dazed by the problem, I'd rather it be you 2. Ha, forget it. We are both old guys, but we can't stand the toss like you young people." The Red Phosphorus on one side laughed and said. Xiao Yang couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. This is also the evil done by Wei Yi. Now he wants him to carry it. Thinking of this, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling a burst of melancholy. It's night. Invisible time passed in the blink of an eye. In the twinkling of an eye, there was only 1 night left from the opening time of the Void Minefield. At this time, Xiao Yang also put down all other trivial things. Now he is sitting on the bed in the room with his eyes closed. In front of Xiao Yang at the moment, the whole room, whether on the table or on the ground, as long as it is a place where items can be placed, is now densely filled with countless jade bottles. On the bed, Xiao Yang spread out his palms and waved them with a wave. After the control of Xiao Yang's soul power, hundreds of gorgeous fire lotus in the size of his palm appeared in front of Xiao Yang in a short moment. Hundreds of fire lotus float in the air like handicrafts, and the gorgeous fire light shines the whole house like day. Xiao Yang flicked his fingers, and hundreds of fire lotus immediately seemed to be ordered and quickly shot into the jade bottle below. In an hour, Xiao Yang repeated this action more than 10 times, and there was a fire lotus in the jade bottles that filled the whole room. After finishing these, Xiao Yang breathed out a sigh. The fire lotus bottle condensed again with Xiao Yang's strength. The power of the fire lotus is afraid to be no less than ordinary fighting skills, but the fire lotus bottle he condensed this time has no less than 5,000. 5,000 fire lotus bottles are equivalent to 5,000 ground-level fighting skills. If they explode together, even the semi-imperial strong will not be able to bear the power. And these, Xiao Yang regarded it as a surprise to Mo Zhai at that time. The next day. Today is the day when the void minefield is about to open. Therefore, today's wild ancient city is more lively than in the past. When Xiao Yang walked out of the door, he looked up. There were streamers flying over the sky. Those were the semi-emperor strong. Even today, those semi-imperialist strong men who did not get the Void Thunder Pool post did not give up. It is precisely because today is the day when the Void Thunder Pool is opened, those who bear the Thunder Post will take out the Thunder Post. Therefore, they are waiting for the rabbit and waiting for the Thunder Post to take the bait. When they got to the main hall, Guli and Kai Phosphorus had already waited here. When they met, they all looked at each other and smiled. Then they didn't waste more time. They walked out of the hall side by side and swept into the sky. Hihi, although the people who bear Lei Tai will gather in my wilderness, in fact, the place where the Void Thunder Pool is opened is not in my wilderness ancient city, but on Mount Gri, which is 3,000 miles away from the wilderness ancient city. During the flight, Jiyu Li introduced the opening place of the void minefield to Xiao Yang with a light smile. Galei Mountain is a mountain that connects the sky. It is covered with thunder clouds all year round. The whole mountain is rich in a large amount of secret gold, and the secret gold has a special attraction effect on thunder. Therefore, it is the best place for friars with thunder attribute, and it is for these reasons that the place where the empty thunder pool is opened will be there. While listening to Jiyu Li's explanation, Xiao Yang nodded in the dark. He also had some understanding of the so-called Galei Mountain in his heart. When the three left the wild ancient city and flew westward for about 3,000 miles, sure enough, at the end of Xiao Yang's line of sight, there was a thunder mountain connecting the sky. They said it was a thunder mountain, because it was surrounded by thick thunder clouds from the hillside of the mountain. Even though they were far apart, Xiao Yang could still feel the invisible pressure from the thunder mountain. The thunder here is really different. Xiao Yang carefully explored the unusual breath between heaven and earth with his soul power, and exclaimed. At this time, even Xiao Jin, who had been sleeping in Xiao Yang's body, couldn't help waking up from his sleep and rejoicing in Xiao Yang's body. Xiao Yang thought and calmed him down. He, the mountain range where Mount Grey is located is called the Grey Mountain Range. It is said that there was a strong fighter with the attribute of thunder who broke through here. When the breakthrough was made, the sky thunder came to the world. The sky and the earth changed color within a radius of thousands of miles. That's a great momentum. Red Phosphorus looked at the vast mountains in front of him. Although he had been here more than 10 times, every time he saw the mountains, he could not help but arouse boundless pride in his heart. In this regard, Jiyu Li was also helpless. He looked at Xiao Yang. They shook their heads and smiled together. Then they stopped talking. They moved and flew away towards the Galei Mountain at the end of their sight. This distance seems very far, but in front of the strength of Xiao Yang, it is only a short time. A moment later, the three of Xiao Yang had come to the front of the Galei Mountain, and it was not until this time that Xiao Yang was more shocked by the Galei Mountain in front of him. This is definitely the most magnificent mountain he has ever seen. The mountain with a diameter of tens of thousands of feet is like a creeping ancient beast. The mountain peaks all over the sky go straight into the sky. The sword points to the sky. The whole mountain is covered with thunder clouds like a black dragon. The bursts of thunder howling from it are like the sound of a dragon, shaking the world. Over the peak of the sky, endless thunder clouds cover the whole mountain range, and the howling cold wind rages in the high altitude. Anyone who touches it is cold, just like being in the Wanyan Ice Palace. In addition, between the heaven and earth, there are endless silver thunders, which fall from the sky like a cholong. Although all the people present were semi-imperialist and powerful, they could not help but be afraid in the face of the terrible power of the thunder. Of course, among the semi-imperial strongmen present, there are also some strong men who are thunder in themselves. When the thunder was shot down, they did not hide and let the thunder blow on them. However, different from the imagined results, the thunder seemed to be attracted by some terrible force at the moment it came into contact with the latter's body, and disappeared in an instant. Looking at the breath of the semi-imperial strong, although at first glance there seemed to be no change, if you look carefully, there was a flash of thunder in the depths of his pupils at the moment. Tut tut, this Galei Mountain is really magnificent. There is such a powerful thunder in heaven and earth. No wonder it will become a holy land in the hearts of thunder attribute practitioners. Xiao Yang looked around and looked at more and more semi-imperial strong men around him. Some of them were strong people with thunder attribute. Obviously, they also came here with admiration. Raising his eyes, Xiao Yang looked up at the magnificent mountain in front of him, and the sense of shock in his heart became stronger and stronger. When his eyes swept from bottom to top to the middle of the mountain, 3 overbearing fonts containing terror and authority slowly came into Xiao Yang's eyes. Grey Mountain. The 3 strong characters were condensed and engraved with coercion. Therefore, when Xiao Yang first saw the 3 characters of Grey Mountain, his mind was awed by the terrorist coercion contained in them. Fortunately, Jiyu Li and Jiyu Li existed beside Xiao Yang, and Jiyu Li quickly woke Xiao Yang up. Xiao Yang, who returned to his mind, looked a little pale. He glanced at the magnificent mountain in front of him with lingering fear, but he didn't dare to face the 3 big words containing terror and authority. Jiyu Li shook his head slightly, glanced at the 3 characters quickly, and was also very dignified in his heart. Then he said to Xiao Yang with a vigilant voice, "You are so reckless." Those 3 words were left by the strong man who fought the emperor after the breakthrough. The prestige contained in them has lasted for a long time. Don't say it's you and me. Even if Mu Han came, he didn't dare to look at it easily. Xiao Yang smiled, nodded and shrunk his head back. Instead of saying more, it was red phosphorus on one side. After hearing Jiyu Li's words, he couldn't help laughing and said to Xiao Yang, "Rock Owl, don't listen to his alarmist words here. Although those 3 words are left by the strong man of the fighting emperor, who says you can't look at them. As long as your soul power is strong enough, you can regard these fighting emperor's authority as nothing. Well, do you think our soul power can resist the threat of the fighting emperor?" Guli turned his mouth, turned his eyes to red phosphorus and said, Hey, we really don't have that ability, but you can't help but say Mu Han too low." Kai Phosphorus grinned, raised her eyebrows and looked at Jiyu Li and said with a smile. At the beginning, he had just broken through the 9-star-and-half emperor, and his soul power happened to enter the realm of unity. At that time, he sat on a mountain not far from Mount Gri for more than half a day. The reason was that he stared at the big words Mount Gri for half a day. Red Phosphorus said with exclamation. Even now they are in a hostile relationship with Mu Han, it doesn't affect his admiration for Mu Han. After hearing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling a burst of surprise. Although Mu Han was arrogant and cruel, he had to say that he had his own capital. Although he hasn't been here for many years, now his strength is further, and his soul strength is even better than at the beginning. How long do you think he can persist if he tries again? At this point, Jiyu Li was finally speechless. In the face of these words, he really couldn't say anything. What he just said was just to face the threat of fighting the emperor without using any power. But on second thought, how could this be possible? Hihi, you came early. It's still some time before the minefield opens. While several people were discussing the emperor's authority, a familiar old voice came from behind the 3 people. The 3 turned around at the same time and saw the visitor. Jiyu Li and Red Phosphorus smiled slightly, and Xiao Yang's face showed a look of surprise. "Xianlao, you can't enter the minefield." "How can you?" Xiao Yang frowned and asked suspiciously. "This man is Xianlao of Union Pavilion." "Hehe, I'm not interested in this empty minefield. It's just that the little friend of Rock Owl is about to enter the minefield today. I'll come and have a look on behalf of my pavilion leader." At the mention of the leader of Union Pavilion, all the strong semi-emperors around them could not help but change their faces. The extremely high-level semi-emperors who were close to them also retreated a little. In this regard, Xiao Yang has no psychological meeting. He is still talking and laughing with the mysterious old man who is coming. "Xianlao." When he came near, Xiao Yang arched his hand at Xianlao Gong and said with a respectful smile. Xianlao waved his hand casually and looked around with deep eyes. He seemed to be searching for something. After a long time, he returned to Xiao Yang and said, "The pavilion leader thought that Mu Han's group of guys might be a little restless, so he asked me to come and have a look, so as to remove some unnecessary trouble for the little friend of the Rock Owl, but it seems that those guys haven't come yet." Xiao Yang smiled. How could Luo Jin not know his intention? He immediately smiled again and said, "Then please thank your excellency for me." The 2 looked at each other and smiled knowingly. Jiyu Li and Kai Phosphorus on one side wanted to speak when they saw that they were in harmony. But at that moment, his face suddenly changed. The 3 Xiao Yang beside him and some semi-imperial strongmen around him also changed their face, turned their body and looked at the distance of Grey Mountain behind them. There, a group of people are flying towards them. Looking at the breath of the leader, it is even more terrible. No one present can reach it. It was Mo Zhai and his party who came late. Mu Han's appearance immediately startled everyone in the Grey Mountains. At high altitude, nearly 150 strong emperors looked solemnly at the approaching Mo Zhai and his party, full of dignified sight, and fell on the head Mu Han. Unexpectedly, the news that came out not long ago turned out to be true. Mu Han, as a 9-star and half emperor, was going to enter the void minefield. Was he going to break through the 9-star barrier and fight the emperor in the Jin dynasty? Everyone's eyes gathered on Mu Han, and all kinds of comments came out quietly, constantly spreading among the world. Cut. It's difficult to break through the level of fighting the emperor in the Jin dynasty. If you want to break through, you can't simply borrow external forces. If you want to break through, you still need to rely on your own cultivation. Even if his current strength is the later stage of the 9-star and half emperor, it's too wishful thinking to break through with the help of the Void Thunder Pool. Yes, from the 9-star and a half emperor to the Do Emperor, this itself is a gap-like existence. If you want to cross it easily, it's not that easy. Moreover, it is said that when you break through the Do Emperor, there will be an imperial robbery. Once you can't bear it, it will be the end of ashes. Even Mu Han can't bear it easily. Hey, it's said that he came for the rock owl this time. Did he see the Morjai people behind him? That's the proof. Moreover, didn't the rock owl refine a whole imperial robbery pill before? Hey, it's a necessity for the semi-imperialist strong to break through the fight against the emperor. Maybe he was attracted by this. Hearing the most powerful explanation, a group of half of the strong emperors present finally nodded their approval. After all, at present, only this explanation is the answer most in line with their conjecture. Hearing the words from the people around him, Xiao Yan looked calm. It was not until he mentioned the whole imperial robbery pill that a layer of fluctuation appeared on Xiao Yan's calm face. If it weren't mentioned by these semi-emperor strong men, he might have forgotten that the imperial robbery pill was prepared for the 9-star semi-emperor. In this way, the reason why Mu Han shot at himself is not only because he killed Wu Mohui, but also one of his goals. With this in mind, the corners of Xiao Yang's mouth involuntarily aroused a sneer. In the depths of his eyes, the bright essence flashed away. Mu Han and his entourage came to the front of Gulay Mountain, and their fierce eyes passed over Xiao Yang. When they saw Shenlaro beside Xiao Yang, they couldn't help but frown. Who could have thought that Shenlaro in Union Pavilion would appear here? After the last time, Mu Han is obviously a lot more restrained and cautious. As for the Shenlaro who appears here at the moment, Mu Han doesn't care too much. In the past, Shenlaro had never entered the void minefield. He believed that this time would be no exception. Several people skimmed over Xiao Yang and his party, and finally landed on a mountain peak close to Grey Mountain. The top of the mountain was a flat land like being scratched by a knife. Several people fell slowly, looked for a place at random, closed their eyes and crossed their knees. Xiao Yang's eyes also swept slowly from Mu Han and others. When Xiao Yang saw the old Hu monster sitting on the edge of several people, his eyes couldn't help flickering. From the position of several people, the old Hu monster was really the most isolated one among them. Xiao Yang smiled and thought about it in his heart. Then he ignored it. However, when his eyes noticed the front Mu Han, he couldn't help frowning and felt a little surprised in his heart. At the same time, Jiu Li and some other semi-emperor strong men beside Xiao Yang also set their eyes on Mu Han. At the moment, Mu Han's eyes stared straight ahead, and his vast soul power condensed into an invisible tornado, surrounded by Mu Han's body, and the wind roared. Right in front of Mu Han, he is facing the three big characters of Gulay Mountain condensed by the power of the strong. At this time, Mu Han is staring at the three big characters with his eyes. Invisible, the threat of terror condensed into a magnificent figure of Ling Tian. The figure lost his hands behind him and was overlooking Mu Han sitting at his feet. The momentum of terror is like the top of Mount Tai. Although Mu Han's soul power has stepped into the realm of unity, it still seems very difficult to face the pressure of the powerful emperor. Xiao Yang explored the scene in front of him with his soul power. Everyone was shocked. Although it seemed hard, Mu Han still sat quietly in front of the emperor's authority. As far as this is concerned, I'm afraid no one can do it except the bones in Xiao Yang's body. And this is enough to witness Mu Han's tyranny. Bang! Above the void, several figures were surrounding an old man who had been injured. His eyes showed a strong look of greed. Although the old man had blood on his mouth and some bruises on his face, he didn't suffer much damage from his breath. Just looking at the current situation, he couldn't advance or retreat. Among the people surrounding Qin Zhong, a thin old man with a dagger in both hands was looking at Qin Zhong with a dark smile. His scarlet tongue gently licked the blood on the dagger. This scene made him feel more bloodthirsty. Tasting the blood on the tip of his tongue carefully, The thin old man sneered at Qin Zhong. Qin Zhong, we don't mean to feel sorry for you, but you also know that there are only 30 people who can enter the void minefield. Which of them is not a powerful person, and which is not a high-level half-emperor except the rock owl? Why do you enter? His voice fell, and a tall old man with a strong body like a tiger also sneered and said, "Ha, the blood snake is right. We also know that you have a good relationship with the rock owl. With him covered, you can naturally enter the void minefield. Hey, but don't forget, he can't protect himself now. Master Mu is on his own this time. A small 3-star and half-emperor can't escape death in front of the 9-star and half-emperor even if he has many means. Gaga. You can't expect the rock owl to protect you. Instead of letting us do it, I advise you to give Lei Tai to us as soon as possible, and we can let you back all over. Otherwise, don't blame us for being cruel." Qin Zhong's face was dignified when Li drank it out. He also knew about Mu Han and Xiao Yang. He knew how powerful the enemy Xiao Yang had to face, but that's why he wanted to enter the Thunder Pool and hoped to help Xiao Yang. It seemed that he saw Qin Zhong's mind. The thin old man sneered again and said, "If you want to enter the Thunder Pool to help the rock owl, I advise you not to think about it. Their opponents are all high-level semi-emperors. Even if you go in, it will only add a burden to him. You will only increase his pressure out of thin air. So I advise you to hand over Lei Tai obediently. Maybe we will see his pity and save his dog's life at that time. Ha." As soon as he said this, several semi-emperor strongmen around him immediately burst out laughing and looked at Qin Zhong with a look of disdain. Don't deceive people too much. Even if he can't defeat Mu Han, you 5-star and half-emperors can't insult him. If he appears here at the moment, how dare you speak so shamelessly and abuse in front of him? Hearing the ridicule of the skinny old man and others, Qin Zhong suddenly became angry. His palms under his sleeve robe suddenly clenched, and his face became red, his green veins showed, and constantly twisted and wriggled. Xiao Yang has helped him several times. He has already regarded Xiao Yang as the life-saving benefactor in his heart. Even the family has a statue of Xiao Yang dedicated to his people. Now he can't stand hearing that these bastards in front of him abuse Xiao Yang so much. But for Qin Zhong's anger, the thin old man who took the lead, the strong old man with a tiger back, and the other 3.5 emperors, they all gave a burst of scornful laughter. The skinny old man looked at Qin Zhong with disdain and sneered. "Why, are you angry? We scold the rock owl. You are very angry. It seems that the rock owl is very important to you. Why do you recognize him as the godfather? Ha. Then I will scold you as the godfather. It's just a dying man. What's the big deal? Ha, indeed, it's just the words of the dying man. It's no big deal. I'm not used to hearing. Killing is. You say yes." Just before the thin old man could breathe, his voice was very cold, just like the cold words from Joyo Hell, but it sounded faintly in his ear. The next moment, the thin old man's pupils suddenly contracted, and then he lost all his vitality when his eyes were dark and his pupils were zooming. Above the void, Xiao Yang slowly loosened his palm with an indifferent face. The thin old man who had scattered all his vitality under his palm lost all control. With gravity, he fell down like a meteor. The thin old man died, and until this time, several other people around him looked back in panic, but when they looked attentively, there was a figure standing behind each of them. Xian Lao, Jiyu Li, red phosphorus. Several people exclaimed in the same tone. The meaning of panic in the words was self-evident, and in their hearts, it set off a storm. They couldn't figure it out. They and others shot Qin Zhong at the outermost edge of the Grey Mountains. How did Xiao Yang and his party know? Although the souls of these people present at the moment felt terrible, but now he focused on Mu Han. In addition, there was the threat of fighting Emperor on Mount Gri. How could they spare no time to spread their soul power and explore the surrounding wars? If someone told me, the people present would not believe it. One of the big reasons why they dared to move Qin Zhong here is that no one passed by here. Since no one saw it and Xiao Yang didn't explore, how did he know? Old bone, thank you. In the face of the 5-star and half-emperor's frightened look in front of him, Xiao Yang didn't bother to pay attention, but gave a light thanks to Jiyu in his heart. Ha, don't thank me. I'm just idle for a while. I think this little guy is good, so I want to save him. I just want you to do it for me, ha. Jiyu answered Xiao Yang's thanks with a smile. Xiao Yang smiled. It's true that compared with him, Jiyu in his body was much more leisurely, but it was just because of this that he was able to save Qin Zhong's life. He smiled a few words in his heart, and then Xiao Yang stopped talking. His eyes looked up, and the softness of the previous moment in his eyes was no longer there. The icy, cold eyes slowly swept through the remaining 4 people in the field. When the 4 semi-imperial strongmen came into contact with Xiao Yang's eyes, they could not help shivering all over. Although Xiao Yang's apparent strength looks only good at the peak of 3-star semi-emperor, anyone knows that his real strength is more than that. The 4 trembled hard, turned their eyes, looked at the Jiu Li people behind them, and then looked at each other. They all felt a cold all over their hearts. Facing these people behind them, they had no chance of winning. Once Jiu Li people shot, they would end up like the blood snake. The eyes of the 4 people involuntarily fell on Qin Zhong. He is the weakest person in the field. As long as he can control him, I believe Xiao Yang and others can only be forced to stop. Shua. Among the 4 people, the only 5-star and half-emperor who had no confrontation suddenly moved like a flash of lightning and grabbed Qin Zhong in a flash. At the same time, the other 3 turned quickly and wanted to drag the people behind them. The monk was encouraged to frown slightly. The momentum belonging to the 8-star and half-emperor was immediately released. The breath of terror was like the top of Mount Tai, which pressed the 3 people down. At this time, the remaining semi-emperor strong man had come to Qin Zhong, and a cruel smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. The old man grabbed Qin Zhong's neck like an eagle claw. Qin Zhong's face suddenly changed. The old man's speed was much faster than him. Although he wanted to avoid, the strength gap between the 2 was huge. Qin Zhong had been firmly locked by the latter. It was impossible to avoid. Damn. It's mean. Seeing the claw like an eagle's claw, Qin Zhong was ready to fight to the death, but at this time, there was a gust of wind howling in the world. The yin wind blew, which made the old man's neck suddenly cold. Before he had time to respond, the cold voice without emotion sounded in his ears. Play speed in front of me, you also deserve. The voice fell, and a strange fire spewed out of Xiao Yang's palm. The old man's body under his palm quickly changed like a piece of charcoal, and then turned into a little fly ash and completely disappeared into the world. When the other 3 saw Xiao Yang's hand, they immediately felt terrified. They didn't expect Xiao Yang's means to be so terrible. Looking at the old man with a red face and a frightened face in front of him, old Xian couldn't help but evoke a compassionate smile at the corners of his mouth and said with a smile, "Fortunately, it's not him you met, but us. His terror is unimaginable even for us." The voice fell, and the momentum of the 3 8½ emperors in the field was suddenly shocked. The power of terror poured out in time, and the figure in front of him also fell down. "Brother Qin, are you okay?" Qin Zhong smiled bitterly, shook his head, frowned at Xiao Yang, looked worried and sighed bitterly. "I have nothing to do, but you, Rock Owl. You have to face this time." But the 9-star and half-emperor, Xiao Yang smiled and patted Qin Zhong on the shoulder with his hand. He smiled calmly. "Don't worry, Brother Qin. It will be fine. Although Mu Han is a 9-star and half-emperor, I really can't fight, but I'm still quite confident about running away." Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Qin Zhong couldn't help thinking of Xiao Yang's terrible speed. From the critical moment just now, Xiao Yang's speed is more terrible than in the past. Alas. Although he felt relieved, Qin Zhong couldn't help but sigh and said, "It's a pity. Unfortunately, I'm not strong enough. I've been practicing for so many years, but I can't help you like these people. I'll fight this war." Qin Zhong wanted to express his good intentions, but he still had no choice but to shake his head. However, his strength was limited. Although he wanted to help, he was only powerless after all. Just as the blood snake said just now, his strength now, even if he went, was just adding trouble and burden. Seeing the helpless look on Qin Zhong's face, Xiao Yang smiled faintly and looked at the 3 Shenlaro people nearby. Xiao Yang smiled at Qin Zhong again. "Brother Qin doesn't have to. If you really want to help me, I can only wish you a breakthrough to 4-star and half-emperor this time. At that time, I have one more thing to ask Brother Qin, hey?" Qin Zhong slightly raised his eyebrows and felt a trace of doubt in his heart. However, when he saw Xiao Yang's positive look, Qin Zhong immediately showed a smile on his face, nodded heavily and said, "Brother Yang Xiao, don't worry. I Qin Zhong have prepared for this day for a long time. As long as I can enter the Thunder Pool, I will be able to break through the 4-star and half-emperor. Haha, I wish Brother Qin success." Xiao Yang and Jiu Li smiled at Qin Zhong together. Then they stopped staying and moved, so they quickly swept away to Mount Gri again. When several people returned to the front of the Greyshan Mountain, a large number of semi-imperialist strongmen had gathered here. At this time, there were more than 10 war circles in the vicinity of the Greyshan Mountain, and those people were still competing with each other for Lei Tai. As the opening time of the Void Thunder Pool is getting closer and closer, the war in the field is also more intense. The sound of fierce fighting skills explodes like bursts of thunder in the sky, which makes the practitioners at the foot of the Gelei Mountain feel a burst of panic. When the public saw that Xiao Yang, who had left earlier, came back again and brought back Qin Zhong, who was hurt all over, they immediately understood the reason why Xiao Yang left. They couldn't help feeling a little impressed by Xiao Yang's heavy love and righteousness. At the same time, they also envied Qin Zhongsheng. Xiao Yang noticed more and more semi-imperial strong men around him. At the same time, he also saw that Mu Han and his party had got up and stood still, waiting for the opening of the empty minefield. Xiao Yang stared at Mu Han. At the moment, the latter's face showed a little pale, but it didn't seem to matter. This couldn't help but make Xiao Yang feel sorry. He looked forward to something happening to the 9-star and half-emperor. Noticing Xiao Yang's eyes, Mu Han turned his head and showed a sneer with disdain. Then he turned back and ignored it. Xiao Yang smiled indifferently and looked up at the black thunder clouds over the top of the mountain. Boom! Until a certain moment, there was finally a roar from the rolling thunder clouds, which everyone was waiting for. Then, just above the top of the mountain, the rolling thunder clouds became more and more intense. For a long time, under the eyes of everyone, a crack like a cloud to see the sun, sprinkled silver brilliance, and slowly expanded in the thunder clouds. Void minefield, open. This video will end here.